Welcome back to Sleep Flow Studio, the place where the world slows down and every moment drifts gently into rest. Tonight, we explore a day unlike any other, a day lived entirely in the medieval routine, quiet and measured, where hours stretch like soft wool and the sun moves slowly across the sky. I woke at first light before the rooster's crow could fully echo, in a small stone cottage with a thatched roof. The room smelled faintly of straw and smoke from last night's hearth, and the air was cool, slightly damp from the morning mist that had settled over the village. A thin beam of sunlight crept through the small window, illuminating the rough wooden floor, and the simplicity of the room made my mind quiet. There was no rush. The day had begun, but it waited patiently for me to rise. I dressed simply, linen tunic and woolen breeches, feeling the coarse texture against my skin. Every motion was deliberate, slow, and intentional. In this medieval routine, there was no pressing urgency, only the rhythm of waking life. I stepped outside into the village street, the mist curling around the timbered houses, and could hear the faint bleat of goats and the soft clatter of a cart passing by. Villagers, already awake, moved deliberately, performing chores with a calm efficiency that made the world feel measured. The first task of the day was fetching water from the well at the village center. The bucket, heavy and wooden, required focus to draw from the depths. Each swing of the rope and the splash of water into the bucket created a meditative rhythm. The cool liquid in my hands felt alive, grounding, connecting me to the simplicity of medieval life. Returning to the cottage, I washed my face and hands at the small basin, feeling each movement slow my thoughts, as if the day itself was asking me to proceed without haste. Breakfast was modest, a loaf of bread, slightly dense, a chunk of cheese, and a cup of ale flavored with herbs. I sat on the low wooden bench, chewing deliberately, savoring the textures and flavors that modern speed rarely allows. Each bite reminded me of the patience of the era, of the care taken to produce even the simplest meal. There was no hurry, no screen, no distraction. Only the nourishment and the quiet surrounding village. The morning stretched lazily, as if inviting me to linger in its calm simplicity. After breakfast, I observed the villagers at their tasks. Women were spinning wool at doorways, the whirring of the spinning wheel a soft, hypnotic cadence. Men sharpened tools, repaired fences, or tended to animals with careful, unhurried hands. Children ran along the streets, their laughter muted by distance, yet carrying a sense of timeless joy. I realized that the medieval routine was not only about survival, but about measured attention to every action. Even the smallest gestures mattered. By mid-morning, I attempted a small chore of my own, sweeping the floor and stacking firewood. Each motion felt meditative, repetitive, and soothing. Dust rose slowly in motes illuminated by sunlight through the window, floating in quiet patterns as though dancing to a rhythm too subtle for ears to hear. The medieval day encouraged observation, presence, and calm awareness. Time was measured not by watches but by sun, sound, and labor. The gentle pace of the morning continued with tending a small garden behind the cottage. I pulled weeds carefully, watered plants, and noticed tiny details. The curve of a leaf, the softness of newly sprouted sprouts, the subtle vibrations of insects moving about. Every step, every breath, every motion became a slow meditation in itself. Life in the medieval routine moved neither too fast nor too slow. It moved exactly as it needed to, in harmony with nature and the sun's path across the sky. By the late morning, the village had settled into a soft rhythm. Smoke curled from chimneys, animals grazed lazily, and the occasional cart passed with muted creaking. I paused to sit on a wooden bench, simply watching the activity, noticing the textures, the roughness of stone, the unevenness of thatch, the golden light on timber. My own breathing had slowed, matched to the pace of the day around me. In this first part of the medieval routine, I felt a calm I had not expected, a sense of connection to a world without haste, a world that existed solely to exist. By late morning, the sun had climbed higher, warming the village streets and casting long, soft shadows across the timbered houses. The air carried the faint scent of hay, herbs and wood smoke mingling into a calm, earthy aroma that made each breath feel grounding. I joined the villagers in their midday work, performing tasks that were simple but deeply meditative in their repetition. In the courtyard, I helped prepare vegetables for the communal midday meal. Each task was deliberate: washing leaves in a stone basin, peeling root vegetables with a small knife, and arranging them neatly in baskets. The texture of the carrots, the rough skin of turnips, and the subtle fragrance of herbs were noticed slowly, as if each moment were an instruction to pay attention. The villagers moved without haste, their motions practiced and rhythmic, a quiet choreography passed down through generations. Women in the kitchen stoked the hearth fire, adding wood in measured intervals. The gentle crackle of burning logs mingled with the hum of conversation. Men brought in grains and water, stacking supplies with care. Even the children assisted, carrying small bowls and utensils, learning the rhythm of work through presence rather than instruction. Watching them, I noticed that the medieval routine was as much about learning calm observation as it was about labor itself. The communal meal arrived slowly. Bread, cheese, stewed vegetables, and occasionally a piece of salted meat were set on a long wooden table. Everyone sat on low benches, faces warm with quiet engagement rather than conversation for distraction. The food was eaten slowly, deliberately. Each bite savored as nourishment, not a convenience. I felt my mind slowing further, aligning with the rhythm of chewing, swallowing, and inhaling the gentle smells of the meal. After eating, dishes were washed in a stone basin by hand, each motion repeated in a deliberate, almost meditative pattern. The cool water flowed slowly, the sound soft and grounding, and the clinking of pottery against stone was comforting rather than intrusive. It was easy to lose track of modern time here, Minutes and hours merged gently into one continuous flow, each task serving as a subtle guide toward calm awareness. The midday period also included tending animals. Chickens wandered the yard, pecking and clucking softly. Goats and sheep grazed in small enclosures, and a horse dozed in the sun near a stable. I helped gather eggs, refilled troughs, and gently brushed the animals. The repetition of these tasks, combined with the quiet presence of living creatures, produced a soothing cadence, a rhythm that seemed almost hypnotic. Breathing slowed, thoughts softened, and I felt completely absorbed in the simplicity of these movements. By the time the sun reached its zenith, the village had settled into a soft, continuous hum of life. The smell of baking bread wafted from ovens. The distant sound of a water wheel turning filled the air, and birdsong wove through the gentle noises of labor. In this stillness, I realized that the medieval routine was not about doing more, but about a doing with awareness, allowing each motion to be felt fully, each task to anchor the mind in the present. Before the afternoon work began, the villagers paused briefly for rest. I sat under the shade of a large oak, hands resting on my knees, and observed the small details. A leaf fluttering in the wind, a shaft of sunlight catching dust in the air, the slight sway of a rope tied to the stable door. This period of stillness, embedded naturally into the routine, was essential, reminding everyone that slowing down is a part of living. The midday portion of the day closed with preparation for the afternoon labors. Tools were sharpened, baskets were checked, and notes were made on small scraps of parchment. Every motion was slow, deliberate, and grounded, reinforcing the rhythm of calm observation that underpinned medieval life. The mind had quieted, the body had settled, and the stage was set for the afternoon routines, where deeper skills and crafts would become the focus. Time passed unnoticed. The medieval routine dictated the pace, not urgency, and the subtle lessons of observation, patience, and attention lingered with every breath. I felt my own thoughts stretching and softening, allowing the day to carry me forward gently, like a slow current across a still river. The afternoon began with the hum of activity in the village. The sun was higher now, warming the roofs and illuminating the rough textures of timber and stone. Shadows moved slowly across the streets, lengthening and bending with the light. Villagers returned to their crafts, some weaving, some carving wood, others shaping clay. I joined in, guided by a simple principle: to learn by doing slowly, without expectation. My first task was helping the blacksmith. The forge was alive with heat, light, and movement, yet it held a rhythm that was mesmerizing. Sparks flickered and drifted upward, the clang of hammer against iron punctuating the quiet air with a measured beat. I watched, then imitated, lifting the hammer with deliberate care, striking slowly and feeling the weight of every motion. The heat radiated gently, not uncomfortably, but as if it wanted to remind me of the steady presence of life and labor. Next, I moved to weaving. A woman sat at a loom, her hands moving with fluidity. almost hypnotic in their repetition. I mimicked her motions, threading the fibers slowly, noticing the texture, the resistance, the soft creak of the wooden loom. My movements were imperfect, but the act itself became meditative. Each pass of the shuttle, each tug of thread, was a small step into the deep rhythm of a medieval artisan's life. Time felt suspended, replaced by a delicate sequence of motions that demanded attention, patience, and calm. Around mid-afternoon, I joined the potter. Clay squished between my fingers, cool and damp, a tactile reminder of the natural world. The wheel rotated slowly, spinning like a miniature world in my hands. I shaped bowls and small vessels with deliberate care, feeling the resistance of the material, the subtle vibrations, and the satisfaction of gentle pressure forming structure. The villagers encouraged me softly, offering guidance in hushed tones, allowing me space to focus entirely on the sensation of craft. Without rush or expectation, the work was not merely functional, it was a practice of presence. Every stroke, every hammer strike, every tug of thread, and every rotation of the potter's wheel demanded awareness, yet did not demand perfection. The afternoon passed in this way, a series of small, repetitive grounding tasks, each reinforcing the calm rhythm of the day. I began to notice my own breathing slowing, my heart sinking with the tempo of the work around me, and a sense of deep contentment settling into my chest. While some villagers rested briefly, I wandered to the edge of the village and observed the natural world. Bees drifted lazily from flower to flower. The wind made the wheat sway softly, and the sound of water trickling from a nearby stream added a delicate musicality to the day. Observing these small details was as much a part of the medieval routine as labor itself, a moment to pause, watch, and integrate the external world into the calm pace I had adopted. Returning to the village, I participated in communal skill sharing. One villager demonstrated herbal preparation, drying leaves carefully on racks of wood, while another showed the subtle technique of sharpening sickles. Each lesson was slow, methodical, and intentionally repetitive, allowing the mind to absorb without pressure. I noticed how the environment supported learning naturally. Sunlight marking the hours, the gentle murmur of labor, the soft rhythm of breath and motion. Everything moved in harmony. As the sun began its descent, the afternoon labor wound down. Tools were cleaned, looms were tidied, and the blacksmith's fire dimmed. I felt a profound sense of accomplishment, not from finishing, but from participating fully in the measured rhythm of the day. Each skill, no matter how small, had become a meditation, each movement a thread woven into the tapestry of calm that medieval life offered. The last task of the afternoon was preparation for the evening meal. I gathered herbs, chopped vegetables, and arranged firewood, all with slow precision. The village itself seemed to exhale, the warmth of labor giving way to the soft glow of evening light. I paused for a moment, leaning on a wooden fence, and realized how fully I had adapted to the medieval tempo. My mind, previously restless, had softened. My body, previously tense, had relaxed into the natural flow of the day. With the afternoon complete, the village prepared for evening chores and reflection. The next phase of the medieval routine. The sun now dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows that painted the stone and timber with muted gold and amber. The stage was set for the calm, introspective evening, where the lessons of labor and observation would transform into quiet reflection, story sharing, and gentle closure of the day. Time had lost its urgency. Life had slowed to a rhythm dictated not by clocks or schedules, but by sunlight, labor, and awareness. I felt my own sense of self dissolve into the environment, carried along in the subtle cadence of a medieval afternoon. As the sun dipped lower, its amber light spread across the village, casting long, soft shadows that stretched lazily across the timbered walls and stone paths. The air had cooled, carrying the faint fragrance of baked bread, smoldering hearths and herbs drying in the open air. Everything around me moved quietly, as if aware of the transition from activity to rest. The first evening chore was feeding the animals one last time before nightfall. Chickens clucked softly as they pecked the remaining grains, while the goats shifted their weight and nuzzled the fresh hay. I refilled water troughs slowly, noticing the reflections of the fading sun dancing on the surface, and brushed the horses gently, feeling the warmth of their coats and the rhythmic sway of their breathing. Each movement was deliberate, yet effortless, and my own breath slowed to match the calm pulse of the village. Inside the cottages, women swept floors with long-handled brooms, dust motes drifting in the warm light, creating patterns almost hypnotic in their motion. Firewood was stacked neatly, pots washed, and surfaces wiped with care. There was no rush, only the natural cadence of work, the quiet repetition of small tasks that grounded the mind and prepared the space for evening rest. Villagers then gathered in small clusters to prepare the communal evening meal. The aroma of simmering stews and roasted vegetables filled the air, mingling with the soft smoke from the hearths. I joined the preparation, chopping herbs slowly, stirring pots with gentle rhythm, and arranging simple plates of food. There was an intentionality in every motion, an awareness that each action was as important as the sustenance it produced. As dinner commenced, villagers sat together at long wooden tables, sharing the fruits of their labor in quiet conversation. The meal was slow, deliberate, and rich in flavor. I noticed the patterns of human connection, the subtle nods, the gentle laughter, the calm exchange of stories. The medieval routine was not only about work, but also about presence with others, a slow weaving of relationships alongside labor and nourishment. After the meal, some villagers engaged in reflection and gentle storytelling. I sat near the hearth, listening to tales passed down through generations, legends of local heroes, the history of distant battles, and fables that taught patience, courage, and wisdom. The stories were spoken softly without haste, allowing each word to settle into the mind and linger, echoing in the warmth of the fire-lit room. Later, I took a quiet walk through the village. Lanterns cast soft golden light on the stone streets. The world felt slower than reality, almost suspended in gentle amber calm. I noticed details previously overlooked: the curve of a roof beam, the subtle texture of worn stone, the faint sound of wind through the trees. Each moment invited reflection, a deepening awareness of the passage of time when experienced slowly, without distraction. Evening chores were completed at a measured pace. Firewood stacked neatly, tools cleaned and stored, and doors secured. Each task was performed with deliberate care, a quiet meditation on responsibility and rhythm. The simplicity of the chores, combined with their repetitive motion, created a state of calm that extended into the mind, encouraging stillness, presence, and deep awareness. Before retiring, I spent a few moments journaling on parchment. Not a record of achievements, but reflections on experience, observation, and presence. The strokes of the quill were slow, absorbing my thoughts into the act itself. Words became part of the rhythm of the day, a gentle echo of the lessons learned through labor, observation, and reflection. As twilight deepened, the village quieted. Windows glowed faintly with firelight. The smell of hearths lingered, and the distant hoot of an owl punctuated the still air. The day's rhythm had softened, its movements now almost imperceptible, carrying everyone toward the night. I felt my body settling, my mind softening, and a profound sense of calm taking root, a perfect prelude to sleep. Evening in the medieval routine was not merely the end of work. It was a transition into mindful rest, a time for reflection, for connection, and for preparing both body and mind for the quiet of the night. In this rhythm, every task, every observation, every breath had its place, shaping a gentle awareness that lingered long after the chores were done. The stage was now set for nighttime rituals and storytelling, where the medieval day moves into its deepest and most calming phase, guiding every soul toward rest and introspection under the soft light of the moon. As the sun disappeared fully behind the hills, the village became wrapped in gentle twilight. Lanterns glowed softly in windows and doorways, casting warm, flickering light onto cobblestone streets. The air was cooler now, carrying the faint scent of wood smoke and dew. The transition from day to night felt natural, unhurried, a slow hand guiding the world into calm darkness. Villagers began small evening rituals, unique to their own households but united in rhythm. Some knelt briefly in silent prayer, giving thanks for safety, for sustenance, and for another day lived fully. Others washed hands and faces in cool water from stone basins, letting the simple act of cleansing become a mindful meditation. Each movement was deliberate, slowing the body and aligning it with the night's calm. In the central courtyard, families gathered around small fires, the flames dancing softly against stone walls. Children listened with rapt attention as elders shared tales of old, legends of local heroes, quiet miracles, or simple stories of life and survival. The voices were low, soothing, melodic in their cadence. Every word seemed to stretch, filling the space with calm, echoing faintly against the stone walls, leaving a lingering softness in the air. I joined a circle of villagers by the hearth, sitting cross-legged on the cool stone floor. A storyteller began weaving a tale of a traveler moving through distant lands, facing challenges and learning patience along the way. The narrative unfolded slowly, each sentence lingering, allowing listeners to absorb the story not only with the mind, but with the heart. The pace was deliberate, almost hypnotic, drawing the mind into quiet contemplation. Outside, the first stars appeared, blinking faintly in the deepening indigo sky. The soft hoot of owls punctuated the gentle murmur of night insects. The rhythm of the village at night was slower still, measured by natural sounds rather than clocks or schedules. Each breath of air, each rustle of leaves, and each faint footstep carried weight in the silence. This was a time to reflect, to feel, and to merge with the gentle cadence of the natural world. After the storytelling, villagers returned to small private rituals. Some tended small herb gardens by moonlight, collecting leaves for the next day's meals or medicines. Others wrote short notes or sketched observations, quietly recording experiences without urgency. Even mundane actions performed slowly became meditative, a continuation of the day's rhythm, a bridge between activity and sleep. I spent a few moments observing the sky, tracing constellations I had learned as a child. The stars seemed brighter, more deliberate in their positions, each one a silent witness to centuries of human life and quiet labor. The cool night air filled my lungs, and I noticed the slowing of my own heartbeat, the softening of tension in my shoulders, and the gentle rise and fall of my chest with each unhurried breath. Nighttime chores were minimal but significant. Doors were secured, lamps extinguished, and fires reduced to embers. Each action was performed with care without rush, respecting the quiet of the night and the need for rest. The medieval routine treated night as sacred, a time for reflection, preparation, and gentle closure rather than hurried completion. By late night, the village had grown still. The only movement was the flicker of embers, the sway of tree branches in the breeze, and the occasional murmur of a night animal. Families gathered briefly to share a final word or gesture of affection before retreating to their beds. In these quiet moments, the importance of presence became clear. The medieval day was structured not only around work and survival, but around your awareness, reflection, and calm, guiding the body and mind toward deep rest. I lay in the small straw-filled bed of the cottage, the warmth of the hearth lingering faintly in the room. My body felt grounded by the day's measured labor, my mind softened by the stories and rituals, and a sense of profound calm enveloped me. The rhythm of the medieval day, slow, deliberate, and mindful, had carried me naturally into the space between wakefulness and sleep. Even as the night deepened, I noticed that the medieval routine encouraged a mental stillness, a release of unnecessary thoughts and a focus on presence. The quiet, the warmth, the slow pace, and the soft ambient sounds all blended into a lullaby of daily life, a perfect guide for gentle, restorative rest. The village was silent, save for the gentle hiss of embers fading in the hearth and the occasional rustle of leaves in the night breeze. The moon cast a pale, serene glow over stone streets and thatched rooftops, bathing the village in soft silver light. Everything moved slowly, even shadows seemed deliberate in their descent, creating a sense of timelessness, as if the entire world had paused to exhale. I lay on the straw-filled mattress, pulling a coarse woolen blanket around myself. The simplicity of the bed, the slight unevenness of the mattress, and the faint scent of straw all contributed to a feeling of grounded calm. Each breath I took seemed to match the rhythm of the village, steady, unhurried, and deliberate. I felt the day's labor settle into my body, the meditative tasks imprinting themselves as a gentle warmth along my muscles, a quiet resonance in my mind. Outside, the occasional owl called softly, and the distant sound of a water stream added a natural music to the night. I closed my eyes and let the medieval routine guide my thoughts into slow motion. The stories shared by the elders, the rhythmic movements of chores, and the gentle cadence of observation all coalesced into a soft mental lullaby, carrying me gently toward sleep. I imagined the villagers around me resting in their own homes, children curled under blankets, parents seated briefly by the dying hearth, all breathing slowly, all bodies softening into night. Even the animals had settled, goats in their pens, chickens roosting, horses standing quietly, absorbing the calm of darkness. The village itself seemed to breathe in unison, a slow, deliberate rhythm that matched the natural movement of the world. As I drifted further, I reflected on the lessons of the day. The medieval routine was not about speed or efficiency. It was about presence, awareness, and alignment with nature's pace. Every action, whether mundane or skillful, carried weight because it was performed fully without distraction. Every breath, every step, every glance was absorbed as part of the rhythm of life. This deliberate slowing, repeated across 24 hours, had softened my mind and body, preparing both for restful sleep. I allowed my thoughts to dissolve one by one like leaves drifting downstream. No longer did I consider the rush of modern life, nor the pressure of schedules or screens. Instead, I focused on subtle sensations, the warmth of the blanket, the texture of straw beneath my fingers, the faint movement of air in the room, the distant rhythm of the village breathing around me. Each tiny observation grounded me further, inviting relaxation to deepen. Dreams began to arrive naturally, slowly, as if carried on the gentle currents of the medieval day. I imagined walking through the village once more, now bathed in moonlight, the cobblestones cool beneath my feet, the air calm and fragrant. I saw the blacksmith's forge flickering faintly, the spinning wheel turning gently, the pottery wheel still warm from afternoon work. Every detail, previously observed during waking hours, now blended into a tranquil mental landscape, a soft tapestry of light, sound, and texture, soothing me toward deeper rest. Time ceased to matter. There were no clocks, no digital interruptions, no urgent tasks demanding attention. Only the natural rhythm of the day and night remained. Rise with the sun, move with purpose, pause with awareness, rest with intention. The medieval routine, now complete, had guided my body and mind to a state of perfect calm, a state where sleep was not sought, but arrived effortlessly. As the final embers of consciousness faded, I felt a gentle warmth in my chest, a slow heartbeat and a profound serenity that extended from my mind to the tips of my fingers and toes. The entire village, the work, the stories, and the observations of the day had merged into one continuous rhythm, a lullaby of life itself. In the quiet darkness, I surrendered fully to rest. My breath slowed, my body softened completely, and the world outside and within me drifted into harmony. The medieval routine, lived for 24 hours with awareness and care, had achieved its purpose, to guide me into my deep restorative sleep, carrying with it the serenity of a day lived slowly, fully, and intentionally. Good night from Sleep Flow Studio. Sleep gently, breathe calmly, and let the rhythm of time carry you softly into dreams.